Greetings, adventurers. We're going to keep talking about the Amber Diceless RPG. In order to understand character creation, you need to understand the 4 attributes. In this game, all of your attributes start at 0. This is Amberite. This is superhuman. I will give an example for each of the Amberite capabilities during their entry. And I will also be mentioning one of the archetypal characters from the books who exemplifies the pinnacle of that attribute. Psyche is a measure of your character's force of will, their general sharpness, and their ability to use magical forces. The archetypal character for Psyche is Fiona. She's a talented sorceress and also a capable trump artist. Somebody with Amberite Psyche can dominate a human by touch, simply by psychically overwhelming them. Strength is the most straightforward of the attributes. Very simply, it's just going to be how much work your character can do with their physical body. Gerard is the archetypal character in this game for strength. A person with Amberite strength is able to toss small automobiles with little issue. Amberites are truly superhuman. Endurance is your character's capability of continuing to go on, their resistance and their ability to heal naturally. Amberites can fight or party for days on end without tiring. At the same time, they're also capable of superhuman regeneration. Corwin is the main character of the Amber books, and he also is the archetype of endurance. An Amberite endurance is required to walk the pattern unassisted and learn pattern imprint. Warfare is the final attribute in Amber. It's going to describe your character's capability of using any weapons from daggers to guns, also to participate in duels, tactics, or strategy. Benedict is the archetypal character for warfare in Amber, and he, for fun, likes to go around the different shadows and turn the losing side into the winning side through his sheer warfare acumen. Thank you. Hope you join us next time where we talk about powers. Welcome back. We're talking about the Amber Diceless RPG. There are a few base powers in the core book. These are going to be pattern imprint, logris, shape-shifting, trump cards, and magic. Magic is subdivided into words of power, sorcery, and conjuration. Pattern imprint has already been explained in my original video, where it's your character's ability to walk between the shadows from Amber to Chaos. You can visit an infinite number of worlds. The logris is a bit more complicated to understand because in order to gain power over the logris, your character needs to go insane. It is essentially this infinite, shapeless, and yet constantly changing shape that can be used to pull yourself or other things through the shadows. It's very versatile and is also useful in hanging spells for later use. Shapeshifting is often considered a requirement to master the logris because it can warp your character's body permanently anytime you use it, and so being able to revert back to your original form at will can be useful. Shapeshifting is time-consuming and takes a lot of endurance to achieve, but your character can use it to travel to new shadows and survive these strange new worlds. Trump cards I think of very much like Magic the Gathering cards. These are drawings of people, places, or things that allow whoever's holding them to have a psychic connection to them. It's one way to use your psyche against another character is by having a trump card of them, but it can also be used to travel through the worlds or the shadows of this multiverse without having pattern imprint. You can use these as portals. So the trump cards can be very useful for facilitating other powers. For magic, there are words of power. They give 20 example words of power, which are simple, coarse abilities that just exemplify one thing like that. It can be just a quick syllable that's going to alter the world in some specific way, such as a burst of light. These work in most shadows, but one of the issues with magic is that not every shadow has a good reservoir of, let's say, mana in it, and the patterns that are required to cast these different spells are going to vary. So sorcery does take a long time to prepare different spells, and they're always going to be limited by the shadows you cast them in, most of the time, and so a sorcerer will prepare most of a spell, but leave blank certain preparations if they don't know what shadow they're going to be in at the time of casting. This can be considered hanging spells, and the logris can be very useful for hanging spells upon. The last form of magic is conjuration. This is pulling shadows from whatever realm you're in at the time and turning it into stuff. This can be simple things, which can only take a few moments up to an hour, or true artifacts. Unfortunately, unless you empower using other abilities, these things will only function in the shadow they're created from. You can also use conjuration in combination with other powers to create magic items. If you have some words of power, you could create wands that use those same words of power for you. And that's the basics of all the powers in this game. You might be wondering why in a game where your character can walk through the shadows of the multiverse or create things using their will and shadow stuff itself, you would want to purchase artifacts with your powers, with your character points. And the answer is that they become an intrinsic part of your character. So you can purchase your special sword, your special shield, whatever it is, and even if it's broken, lost, or taken from you, you can eventually be reunited with it because it is yours in an intrinsic multiversal way. At the same time, you can travel through the multiverse and meet all kinds of people, but some of them you may want to be your friends. They could be your friends in one particular shadow, or they could be your friend in all shadows. You can purchase these allies with your character points, and that means you get to define who you have found and who you can rely on. Same thing, you can own entire shadows. This shadow could be a copy of another realm that you use to troubleshoot things. It could have different ways that time flows through it. So if you need a place to heal up, find yourself a couple hours there. It's only going to be a few seconds in another world. So this allows you to have a lot of creativity if you purchase these things beforehand. And that's it. Hope you have fun.